Hello, today is Thursday, September 12th. Quickly what we're doing today, you can see our target. We're going to be going back to the Declaration of Independence. That's what the D of I is. And we're going to see some of the major principles that are inside of it. There's actually 4 principles that really come out of the Declaration of Independence beyond the complaints and the idea that we're just separating. And so we're going to start taking a look at some of the key excerpts, some of the key parts of the Declaration and the principles that come out of it. I'm going to move myself up a little bit so that you can take a look at the vocab word today. So the vocab word today is pronounced unalienable or inalienable rights. I've heard it both ways. And so these are rights that cannot be taken away and given to somebody else. This is a huge part of the Declaration stating that we have our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson took these ideas from a man by the name of John Locke, who said that government should protect our life, our liberty, and our property. Thomas Jefferson said, well, unalienable property can be taken away and given to somebody else, but your life cannot just be sucked from you and given to somebody else. Your freedom, although, I can free somebody and then put you in jail, but your personal freedom can't be taken and given to somebody else. And then your pursuit of happiness, we're going to talk about today, what you find as happy, your joy and contentment, can't be somebody else's joy and contentment. It's your personal joy and contentment. So he argued that these are given to us, that we get these at birth, and that government's main role is to protect them. So we're going to take a look at that a little bit more closely today. We started the hour by taking a look at hand signals and reviewing those because tomorrow's the big challenge. See if we can all do it with our eyes closed. I finished the 7 important questions. I bet I'm probably at the beginning of this PowerPoint, so it'll take just a minute as I fast forward to our last set of questions. And this one takes on a little bit more serious tone, even though the picture itself is quite crazy of my daughter all dressed up in a whole collection of stuff from our dress-up box. So the question is, will the teacher treat me as a human being? And I always start off by saying, I don't see any aliens. I haven't recognized any alien presences in my room. But really, the point behind this is everybody wants to know, does this teacher have favorites? Does she treat everyone the same? And I guess what I'll say is no, I don't treat everybody the same. It's not that I have favorites, it's that you're all different people. And so I won't treat you exactly the same because that would be saying that you're all exactly the same person with the same needs. So I am going to treat you fair, though. Fair, if we look at my next slide, this really sums it up from another teacher. Equal means the same. I'm not treating you the same. Fair in the middle means that I'll do my best to give you what you need to be successful. And what you need might be different than what somebody else needs. So there may be times when you see somebody using their Chromebook when I tell everybody else not to. There might be times when you see somebody doing a little different assignment. Or their worksheet looks a little different, or they're watching a video versus listening, or they're listening to a book online, whatever it might be. Or it could be just in how I encourage each of you. Some of you might need me to sit down beside you and listen to you. Some of you just might need me to say, okay, let's get going here. So I want you to know I don't have favorites. I'm not. It's not that, and it's that I'm trying to treat you all fairly. Another great example of that is if 2 people go to the doctor, both complaining about a headache, and if they get a brain scan done and one's found to be very dehydrated, so the doctor gives them aspirin and some water, but the other person is found to have a brain tumor, I hope the doctor wouldn't give them an aspirin and some water and say, okay, I hope this helps. The idea is that they would do further things for that person. We're not treating them exactly the same because they don't have the same symptoms, the same things happening. So that's the same with you. We're all different people. So in the end, I just want you to remember, my last slide says that we are in this together. We're a community. We talked about that last week. And as a community or a team, as you see a couple of my son's teams up here, we're working together. We're out to be all of us successful. And so we do that in little different ways. You treat different, you have different people practice different things based on their roles and their skills and their strengths and their weaknesses. So just remember that it's an important thing as the year goes on, and you start noticing people doing different things in different ways, and it's just because that's what they need. And I'll mention that as we go. So enough on the 7 important questions. Switching over now back to the Declaration of Independence, we started with a worksheet called Key Concepts. What this is it pulls out part of that natural rights section of the Declaration of Independence. This section talks about what governments should do for people, what rights we have naturally that we're born with. And so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to look through this and decide what words in here you don't understand. I've pulled out some that I think we might not understand, like the word endowed, self-evident, and unalienable rights. Maybe you know that now because that was our vocab word. Pursuit of happiness was another vocab word. Are instituted. What is the word instituted? Or deriving, or just powers, consent. I want you to go through and define these words, because anytime you look at, especially an old document, you got to know what some of these words mean. So I had everybody work in groups to define those words. And then we took a look at the first, looks like 6 questions on here together. We didn't worry about the last 2. They're dealing with slavery, and that's an interesting concept, that they allowed slavery to continue, even though at the beginning it says all men are created equal. There was definite this double standard, this idea that slaves, African Americans, were not equal, and they weren't even sometimes viewed as human, as a person. So that's an interesting concept, one we'll get to later on when we start talking about slavery and the Civil War. But focusing on these first couple, and I want you to think about, what's the purpose of government? Who's in charge of government? Like, who's got the power? And I'll tell you, it's not the president. He is one of the 220 some million people in this country, but he doesn't have all of the power. He's not the person in charge. So go through that, answer the questions to your best of your ability, and check with me and see what you got for answers. And then we went through that, and then we started talking about the 2 principles. So on the back of this sheet that you just saw, I handed it out in class, there was this document as soon as it pulls up. The first concept is all people are created equal. And when they wrote that, they really meant you had to have 4 qualities to be equal. You had to be a guy, you had to be at least 21 years old, you had to be white, and you had to have some money or own land. If you were those 4 things, then you were equal. And why is it important today? Well, what we're going to talk about is it's not that way anymore. We've over time changed that. We've been actually working to make the Declaration of Independence more real, more true. So we got rid of the 18 event, or the 21 eventually, and made it 18 during the 1970s. In 1920, we gave women the right to vote. So that got rid of that part. It made it all people instead of all men are created equal. Very quickly, we got rid of the requirement to own land. And then the white came out after the Civil War, when we got rid of that during the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So we just talked through that. And then the next one, all people have basic rights. Well, remember, those are unalienable rights. So life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So we jotted that down there as a review. And then we went around the room and looked at what would be examples of unalienable rights and alienable rights, which are rights that can be taken away. So, for example, your favorite bicycle, your bike that you've had and you love. And I have one too. That's probably why I brought it up. My bike is actually alienable, meaning that it can be taken away and given to somebody else. I may not like it, but my love of biking cannot be taken away. That's my pursuit of happiness. My house is another example of property that I love, and I shouldn't ever lose, but it could be given away to somebody else. But so there are some examples, and it's just this idea that we have life, we have liberty, and we have our pursuit of happiness. So